All right. Thank you so much for joining today in the Kailua Study and online study group, and of course the 26th day of the 40 days resurrection in progress. So we're on day 26, and we start with our meditation today, and we are going to listen to an introduction to the tape that we're going to listen to, which is the deep pull of my being, of your being. It says in the text of Joel, the deep pull of your being. And so it's like we're going to dive immediately into that deep pull, the deep pull of your consciousness, where the stillness and the quiet is. So it's like, yeah, words don't fail entirely. That's what I feel. It's like words fail entirely. Now look at what we're actually trying to do here, where we say are granted access to that. That to me is amazing and so beautiful to see that you're being called to connect with that continuously. So there's so much available to just let that happen. And all the support that you can possibly imagine is given for that to occur, because it's like the only natural thing you can do here in the place that you find yourself, say, as being your human sense of limitation, is to wake up out of that dream and to see that you never left heaven. So that's very shortly said what we're, say, recognizing here or remembering here together. With that purpose we come together. It's like that in itself is, I can say it in words, like I said, it fails entirely what it actually entails and covers, because the love of God is right here, and it didn't go anywhere. You never lost it. There was never an idea of, there was never such thing as separation or mesmerism. It does not exist. So however real it might look for a moment in your dream, doesn't take away that you can completely wake up out of it, and that this is the appointed time to let that occur. This is how close it comes at this point. Like, we cannot keep repeating beautiful phrases from the Bible without applying them to our individual lives, consciousnesses. And so that's why everything that's being offered here is continuously to continuously, say, dive into that, come into that, deeper and deeper, go into that pool of your being, recognizing that that is the only thing there is. There is nothing else going on, no matter how much you try to convince yourself and others that there is. So this realization is, of course, something that you allow yourself to come to deeper and deeper and deeper. So layers of denial and ignorance are being undone, and it can go really quickly. It's like it goes by the idea of a different experience of yourself will do more than 1,000 words or 200 talks or 500 books. So for this experience of light and love and connectedness, like literally coming into the light and experiencing the oneness with God, is the provision here. And then you recognize too that that isn't just a little thing. No, it's like whatever you have to do for that is in fact give up what you thought was real, give up what you thought that you were, giving up what you think that God is and what your salvation is, and all this. So that needs to get out of the way. So in other words, we call that, like as Paul said it to us, it's like dying on a daily basis. This is what Joel repeats for us and to us many times too. Like you die daily in your humanhood. You die daily. All these ideas can go. This is literally, say, the process of resurrection is that giving up ideas about what you think that you are and coming to a whole new experience yourself. That is the provision that is given to you. What else? You could say, what else is given me? What else is given me than that, but that? So, taking that, breathing that in today, in our meditation, breathing that in, and letting that be confirmed by the words of Joel, but not just staying with the words, no, letting these words affect us and allow us to die in our humanhood at this point, no matter how that's looking for you. All of that is fine. But these are not just words. It passes words completely. So words are not covering what they are. It's impossible. It's like a symbol. That's all. It's a symbol for something. And that something is what you want to find. So don't let yourself be distracted by the words, but go for your own experience of the deep pool of your being. So here it is. So I'll repeat this to you. I'll read this to you and repeat it a couple of times with breaks, with silence in between. So go beyond these words and feel what it actually entails by allowing yourself to die into your humanhood. God is my good. God is the health of my countenance, my safety, and my security, my high tower, my rock, my foundation. God is my good. God is the health of my countenance, my safety and my security, my high tower, my rock, my salvation. God is my abiding place, my home. I live and move and have my being in this sacred, secret place of the Most High, hidden from the world. My body may be seen, but not the eye of my being, because I live in an inner awareness of God. My body is out here walking and working in the world, but I am not. I am living in the temple that is within me, the temple that is my consciousness. Repeating this one more time to you. God is my good. God is the health of my countenance, my safety and my security, my high tower, my rock, my foundation. God is my abiding place, my home. I live and move and have my being in the secret place of the Most High, hidden from the world. My body may be seen, but the eye of my being, but not the eye of my being, because I live in an inner awareness of God. My body is out here walking and working in the world, but I am not. I am living in the temple that is within me, the temple that is my consciousness. God is my good. God is the health of my countenance, my safety and my security, my high tower, my rock and my foundation. God is my abiding place, my home. I live and move and have my being in this secret place of the Most High, hidden from the world. My body may be seen, but not the I of my being, because I live in an inner awareness of God. My body is out here walking and working in the world, but I am not. I am living in the temple that is within me, the temple that is my consciousness. God is my good. God is the health of my countenance, my safety and my security, my high tower, my rock and foundation. God is my abiding place, my home. I live and move and have my being in this secret place of the Most High. Hidden from the world, my body may be seen, but not the I of my being, because I live in an inner awareness of God. My body is out here walking and working in the world, but I am not. I'm living in the temple that is within me, the temple that is my consciousness. God is my good. God is the health of my countenance and the safety and my security, my high tower, my rock, my foundation. God is my abiding place, my home. I live and move and have my being in the secret place of the Most High, hidden from the world. My body may be seen, but not the eye of my being, because I live in an inner awareness of God. My body is out there, out here, walking and working in the world, but I am not. I am living in the temple that is within me, the temple that is my consciousness. So thank you for, say, allowing yourself to go into that pool, to go into that. And you might say like, well, I'm not sure if that really happened, or I'm not sure. Then I can say like, yes, it did work. Yes, it did work. You got there. See, the thing that thinks it's not working is also the thing that is always distracted, and the thing that's always looking for something else, looking for distraction is a good word. Like the thing that doesn't think it's successful in this, in receiving this for itself, is also the thing that denies everything. You know, it's like it's always looking for something to deny, to prove to itself that it does not work. And that thing in itself is what you could call a no-thing. It's a nothing, it's a no-thing. And it is a thing that loves to be a victim of the situation, of the occurrences, of the circumstances, of the world politics, of these, you name it. Like that no thing wants to be all that, and proves to itself that it is. But it also exhausts itself by doing so. So it's always tired to do so too. It's like it gets sick of its own ideas. And that is this no thing that is always looking for failure, always looking for lack and limitation to prove to itself it exists. And it's like almost like a child that is too sleepy to play. You know, it's like it's doing weird things with the toys, and it doesn't even know it's playing anymore. It's a bit like that. So this is the human dream. You know, it's like that is the human dream. It is what you think you are. It's what you say prove to yourself that you are, just with missing one step, and that is to not prove it, to stop it for a moment, and to actually start to listen, and to allow it to fall apart, to cave in on itself, and not being afraid to go through that, or not letting the fear stop you to go through that, and literally dying into that. So this is, of course, the same what I said in the beginning of the meditation, but it's really the theme that Joel brings up in the deep pool of your being, which is talk 117a. So he uses this. So the prayer that we did, though I didn't say that yet, it's like the prayer that we used, or the words that we used, were from the parenthesis in eternity. So that's always a great resource for prayer, for very comforting, say, possibilities to go beyond the words that are given. And this is also something that I will keep repeating to myself and to you. It's like, it's not about the words, so you go beyond it, because the words are just symbols. They are used to express something, and we need words as long as they are being used, like as long as it's helpful. And you see that when we are in quiet, no words need to be spoken, and you can still have a beautiful experience. Like it is not depending on the words at all. But your mind might, this no thing loves to wander away, and suddenly you find yourself in holding on to an idea, or having an imagining of something that you would love to do while you're not here doing that. But you think about your vacation to wherever, or what needs to occur in an hour. And continuously your mind is like wandering away. So then these words can help to come back to, oh yeah, wait a minute, I'm just letting that cave in on myself, sinking into the pool of my being instead of anything else. It's like, oh, continuous distractions seem to appear, and that's why I need to say come with this training that I do. I need to, Joel says this too in the tape, is like need to meditate a couple of times a day or 5 times a day, whatever is necessary for me to allow myself to learn, to allow myself to cave in on myself and let this no thing be undone. Let this no thing fall apart, literally. I giving up all the hope of a better past, giving up all hope of a better body, giving up all hope of a better this and that. Whatever your theme is, that is given to you to exercise this, to in fact come to that lesson, to learn that lesson, like, oh yeah, this is not me. No, this is all connected to this body that appears to be walking around this earth, and this body that does all kinds of things, but that's not what I am. And that becomes more and more obvious. Like when I realize that, just for a moment, I feel so much better. Because the thing is that if I believe I am this no thing, and then I immediately step into fear. There's always something threatening me when I believe I am the no thing. So that's why this is such great training and possibility to have that be undone. Like, yeah, that is in fact that. Because, see, you don't have to train yourself to become the love that you are. This is already given to you. You are that. And you are completely connected to your Father. Yes, there is no place where God is not. And no matter how hard you try to prove it, that there is a separation of God. Proving it to yourself, of course. Because there is nothing outside your consciousness. Like we're one in that one consciousness. You have your subjective experience of that. And that's the beautiful thing then. Like it still is my experience of oneness, but I dissolve in that. That is the thing that is given me as the real thing instead of the no thing. See how words are just symbols? You know, I point in a direction with it, but you will have to go beyond it in order to see how that works. See, and luckily you don't have to do all these things, because another characteristic of this no thing is that it tries to manage and organize. Like, look at yourself, how many moments you catch yourself organizing your thoughts. Like, okay, I need to do this and then that and then that and then and there you have your future. Like, do you think that makes any sense? No, it does not make any sense. Like, you don't need to occupy your mind with organizing your thoughts, because the thing that happens when you do so is that you lose literally track of, not of time, but of this moment. You know, that is what occurs to you. So when you lose track of this moment, like this moment of wholeness, of perfection, of connectedness, you step right into fear. So when you start organizing your mind and your thoughts, like, okay, the planning that I'm talking about, like you literally try to organize that, you also say literally massaging fear into it. So you project it literally into your future happenings. And there is no future. So that's another thing. So this training then, this way of coming together to just allow yourself to collapse fully into this moment, to allow that to be whole and perfect, is the whole training, in fact, is the whole purpose of coming together, to come closer to the moment in which you allow that. So that is an essential part of what Joel shares. So Joel uses a lot of examples in his talk. So the idea of the deep pool I looked it up in the text, and I'd love to share that with you, where it actually occurs or comes from. I do know that there's a center of our being, which is God, and it is like a deep, silent well. I call it a pool of contentment, a deep well of contentment, a deep well of silence, a deep pool of silent spirit. And when you're at that center, it is as quiet and as peaceful and serene as heaven itself, because it is heaven. But it is out of that deep well of contentment, out of that deep peace, that inner peace, my peace, that these healings flow, these supplies, these employments, these harmonies, these joys. They flow out from it, and then those who have tuned in by asking for help, they get the benefit of it. So the last part is interesting to me, that Joel mentions it that way, because he talks about a benefit. And then now it looks like, okay, I do these things, then I get the benefits. So that would be a reciprocity. That would be like a bargain with God. I'm doing this for you, I'm going deeply into the well, and now I expect from you some benefits here. Of course, that is not the truth about it and what Joel actually means. But you can read it like that. It's like, no, that it's like recognizing the deep pool of my being, having that fully in my consciousness, literally the world disappears. So when I have thoughts about my world or this world or whatever, I can see changes occur, sure. Like the issues that I had before, for instance, the no-thing ideas that I had about my finances, my business, my employment, my illnesses, my this and my that, those ideas suddenly come in a whole new light, because they actually, I cannot use them anymore against myself. That is the thing. I cannot attack myself with that any longer. I cannot prove to myself that that is the reality of me. And that's why there's a change possible, because you simply stop proving to yourself that there is such a thing as lack. That's really why the miraculous shift is occurring. So it's not as much as that you pray and then hope that God will give you the benefits. No, it's like you literally allow yourself to die as a no-thing, die into your humanhood, to be reborn in spirit, seeing that these things that you saw before as lack and limitation and all this, you can no longer use against yourself, because you start to recognize yourself, you start to wake up to yourself, your new self, being a complete and whole part of the God that you are, and that you're fully connected with. So this is essential to pick up, in this talk. Otherwise you think like, okay, so now I have to meditate and I have to do this, and then I get this benefit, health and security and all this stuff. Like that will not happen. Simply, that is not the way that works. So like there is no hope for the no-thing that always seems to be lacking something. There's just no hope for that thing. Like that has no reality, that has no power, that has no, it has nothing that confirms your true identity. So it literally disappears when you experience something else. And can you pick up ideas and that you're going to use against yourself after that? Yeah, you can, of course. You can always do that. But you recognize that you're doing it to yourself, and why would you keep holding on to that? But see, all these things are easier said than done, as I share it now with you. The truth of it all is coming into this recognition when you allow this no thing to die, literally to collapse into itself, seeing that what lives in you as the true well of contentment, that is you, you want to give that away. Like you want to extend that to everyone that you meet. You recognize in everyone yourself. So this is how you keep that going, so to speak. This is how you extend that, how you stay in the, literally in the act of giving, extending the light into this world. And yeah, so that is your new, say, your new way of being present. And does that have to do with this world necessarily? No. Because in heaven you will do the same thing, like you add your joy to all of it, since that is what you are. So it's interesting what Joel shares here, but like I said, it is quite a message. It's quite something to hear directly what he says, and I hope this short introduction will help you in doing that.
Good morning. We are already beginning to see some of the fruitage of these morning sessions. I mean, in a very noticeable manner. First of all, in this past week, my mail has dropped off just one half. And that means very definitely that a lot of people have had sudden and quick healings. That won't remain that way so far as the mail is concerned, because the more healings there are, the more people learn of it and the more requests come for help. But where a falling off happens like that very suddenly, it just indicates that many people have found their help and have not found it necessary to write. Another noticeable bit of fruitage is that there have been several very quick and very outstanding healings. That is, healings of what the world would call impossibilities. There have been other experiences that have taken place right inside of this group. So that at least we can say that probably we are on the right track. Probably we are going in the right direction. At least the evidence would make it appear that way. And so a question naturally comes to thought: what is this principle that we are trying to prove and that we may be seeing some evidence of? What is the specific principle that we expect great things of? First of all, The principle is that God is individual consciousness, that God is your consciousness and mine. Now let us remember that, because everything else stems out from that principle. This principle, God is individual consciousness. God is the consciousness of the individual. God is your consciousness and mine. This is the principle upon which everything else stems out in the message of the infinite way. There are many so-called principles. There are many facets of the same principle. But the one point, the one vision above all that may be called the vision of the infinite way is the principle that God is individual consciousness. God is the consciousness of the individual. God is your consciousness and mine, and his and hers, and its. The animal world, the vegetable world, the mineral world, God is the consciousness thereof. Scripturally, you have this revealed in such passages as, I and the Father are one, or Son, thou art ever with me, and all that I have is thine, and I will never leave thee nor forsake thee. Whithersoever thou goest, I will go. If you go through the waters, you will not drown, because I am with you. If you go through the flames, they will not kindle upon you, because I am with you. In other words, that I, which is divine consciousness, is wherever you are. The place whereon thou standest is holy ground. Lo, if I make my bed in hell, thou art there. Whither shall I flee from thy presence? Lo, if I make my bed in hell, thou art there. You see, there is no way of getting away from that divine consciousness, because even in hell, or heaven, or high tide, or flame, or war, or depression, or panic, you cannot get away from the word I. Now, when you understand that God is that I, then you will understand that God, the infinite intelligence of this universe, is your individual mind, life, soul, being, spirit, truth, consciousness. The importance of that must be clear. Because it is now revealed that no longer shall you worship in a holy mountain, nor yet in Jerusalem, that holy city, that holy temple, but in spirit and truth, right where you are. There is the kingdom of God, right within you. No need to go someplace. No need to seek a holy place, or a holy man, or a holy woman. The place whereon thou standest is holy ground. There is no place where you can escape from the arms of God, the consciousness of God. The everlasting arms, it's called. The rock, the fortress, the high tower. All of this is where you are, where I am. Where I am is my high tower, my fortress, my abiding place, my heaven. Now, this, you see, separates us from any sense of reaching out to a God somewhere. It prevents us from fearing powers out there somewhere. Nothing that defileth can enter to make a lie. There's no difference whether it's something physical, mental, moral, financial. Nothing can in any wise enter. Enter what? God consciousness, which is my individual being now. So that it centers all attention on the kingdom of God within ourselves, and it removes from us all fear. There's nothing within us that we have to fear, since the kingdom of God is within us. There's nothing without that we have to fear, because even in hell, the same divine consciousness or God is our healing influence, protective influence, sustaining, maintaining influence. Or we use terms like protective, healing. They are not literally true, since in this realization there would be nothing to be healed of and nothing to be protected from. So at most we would be protected from the erroneous belief that we were human beings set off by ourselves and some way out of contact with God. We can't be out of contact with the infinite nature of our own being. We all agree that God is infinite power of good, but then we fail to agree that God is our own being. Therefore, the infinite nature of God's being is the infinite nature of our own individual being. Now, this is absolute truth. This is complete truth. This is the real truth of the universe. This is the truth that the saints and sages of all ages have tried to reveal to human consciousness. And one thing has prevented the whole world accepting and by now living this consciousness. And that is this point, that whereas all of this is true, it is of no avail to anyone, except in proportion as they attain an inner realization of it. In other words, the things of God are foolishness with man. And so all of this truth is really foolishness, so far as we as human beings are concerned. And it's of no avail. It only becomes of avail, it only becomes the life of our life when we have attained that first spark of inner illumination that reveals to us that this is the truth. In other words, the only reason that we could be sure in going to Jesus Christ that we would have an instantaneous healing is that he had attained more of this realization than we had. The only reason we can go today to a spiritual healer for our help is that they have attained a greater realization of the truth of our true identity than we have attained. But we can go and do likewise as soon as we have attained some measure of that same realization. And if we lived sufficiently with this truth, if we for a long enough period were to meet in this manner, with complete silence, remember, not discussions, not talks about truth. They would only nullify the whole thing. But meet in silence, with nothing but meditations, or as this is coming, an individual expression of truth, with all the rest of the room in a complete state of silence and receptivity. If there were to be such things in a dozen cities, the history of the world could be changed. Because the peace, the harmony, the healings, the success would not come from the words that were being spoken by a speaker. They would be coming out of the united, silent consciousness that were met together in one name. Do you see that? Wherever there is one moment of silence, there is heaven. I don't only mean a refraining from speech, but I mean the kind of silence that you can feel in a room, the kind of silence that thunders, the kind of silence that speaks in godly language. Now, out of the depth of a silence such as is in this room at this moment, an infinity of healings could take place, not only in this room, not only in this community. Wherever in the world there is a soul desperately reaching out for a realization of the Christ or for the help of God, that soul could tune into the silence in this room. What is this silence that has such tremendous power? It is the consciousness of God when human sense is still. When the human mind isn't busy thinking, trying to make a demonstration, trying to get something, trying to achieve something. When that human mind is still, the divine mind, the divine consciousness is in active expression. Not only in a room, can't be confined to a room. It's an expression in the whole universe, in the whole world. Now, first, let each one here realize this. God is individual consciousness. God is your individual consciousness, and you can bring the presence and power of the Godhead to bear in this room, in your own room, in your own home, in your own community, in your own family, in proportion as you can settle back into the same silence and let it come through. Now, at first, this is the difficult thing to achieve. If it weren't so difficult, the whole world would have had it by now. It is very difficult to achieve. And for an individual setting out on their own hook to achieve it, they may have to do what I did. Go through months and months and months and months, finally years, of 8, 10, 12, 20 meditations a day until it finally came forth. I have told classes that it took me 8 months of 5 to 8 meditations a day before I received the very first click. 8 months of day and night work on it. At that time, the question was, how do I know that there is such a thing and that it will accomplish anything after it's done? And I can only say that I had no knowledge of it at all. I just had a conviction. No knowledge. Nobody had gone that way before me. Nobody had prepared the ground. And so it was totally something that was done through an inner conviction that if I can touch the center of God, which is within myself, that will release it into expression, and it will then take hold of not only my life, but the life of my work, of my practice, of my patience, and that then it will begin. But just to achieve one, well, it wasn't even a second of realization. I don't know how to measure time when you get under a second, but it was certainly less than a second of realization. It was another week before the second one came, and many days before the third one, and then another week before the fourth one. And then gradually it happened twice in one day. And then one day it seemed to last for an eternity, which certainly was far less than a minute. And so on, it gradually took over until probably 3 years went by before I knew that it was possible to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and sometime between 4 in the morning and 8, it would happen. Just when that it differed. Some days it took 5 minutes, and some days it took the whole 4 hours. But never after that did I leave my home for my office until it happened. Now, every bit of this is confirmed in Scripture. The kingdom of God is within you. There's no use of praying to anything outside of your own being, because the secret lies in the Father within me doeth the works. I don't know what a Father within me is in that language, but I do know that there is a center of our being which is God. And it is like a deep, silent, well, I call it a pool of contentment. A deep well of contentment, a deep well of silence, a deep pool of silent spirit. And when you're at that center, it is as quiet and peaceful and serene as heaven itself, because it is heaven. But it is out of that deep well of contentment, out of that deep peace, that inner peace, my peace, that these healings flow, these supplies, these employments, these harmonies, these joys, they flow out from it. And then those who have tuned in by asking for help, they get the benefit of it. In our work, we will never have to go back to those first 3 years. Nobody will. Probably out in the world there are those going through it who do not know of this work of the infinite way. We won't have to go through that period, firstly because the chapters, meditation, communion in all of the writings make it easier for our students to achieve it. Secondly, the consciousness that went into the production of those writings make it easier. Thirdly, the meditations and consciousness of our students all over who are meditating every day, making it easier for the rest of the world to meditate every day. In fact, the word meditation, if you're at all observing, the word meditation is now coming into more and more and more of American literature. You'll find it in places you never dreamed of before. In the last 3 weeks, Dr. Peel has mentioned it twice in his articles. Almost never appeared before that. Now it's becoming one of his principles that if you meditate, all things are possible. And it's coming into other literature. Every once in a while I see it in articles. Meditation, meditation, meditation is the way. Meditation is the way, but do not get fooled by any of these articles. Meditation is in and of itself not the way. Meditation is only a way to achieve the way. The way is contact. If your meditation does not result in contact, and that's something that the literature that we read hasn't yet discovered, that you won't find. That meditation in and of itself is not the way. It's only a way of achieving an inner silence to make the contact. When the contact is made, you have discovered the way. Then you have found the way to let the imprisoned splendor of Browning escape. So meditation is the way to get back into ourselves until we reach that deep well of contentment, until we reach that center of our own being, which is God, and where we as individuals disappear. Then only do we understand Paul, I live yet not I. Because that I now disappears in that deep inner silence. Now, our work is simpler than anyone else's in all the world, because having had 25 years of this inner meditation and contact, it is a simple thing for me to lift up those who come to me so that they can achieve it. And that's what we are accomplishing here in some degree. One by one, the students in this room are attaining a measure of ability to touch that center of their own being and get a response to it. And in time, everyone here will have it completely, so that at will, not only when they're in this room everyone should be able to achieve it when we're together, but ultimately everyone in this room will be able to go out and at will touch this center of their own being and find this God power, God presence flowing from them into the world as an atmosphere of harmony, of peace, of joy, of healing to all whom they meet. Then will come the next step, in which each one will carry it to the next. But you will observe that the way of this work isn't to try to go out and influence anybody to follow it or to try to carry it to them. The way is to be joyous and free in sharing it with those who come, and who indicate by their own eagerness and desires, and if necessary, sacrifices, that this is a way toward which they have been led. Do you see that? This is not something that you can carry out to the stadium and tell the city of Honolulu. It isn't something you can carry out to a radio station and tell the whole world. Oh yes, you can tell the world about it, and as I've seen by experience, you can interest tens of thousands of people. But when it comes to the individual sacrifice necessary to achieve this inner realization, that is when the numbers dwindle and dwindle and dwindle. Now, be assured of this. First of all, since God is your individual consciousness, you can, through faithfulness, through persistence, perseverance, you can reach the kingdom of God that is within you. And in reaching it, you can bring it forth into your experience so that it takes over your entire life, your entire mind, spirit, soul, body, business, undertaking of any nature. One step in this is refraining from the use of the word I as much as possible. It is, I can't tell you how stupid, how foolish it feels to mix up the word I in anything that has to do with God. It is utterly impossible for any individual on the face of the globe to be any kind of a contributing factor toward the presence and power of God as a Matter of fact, the opposite is true only in proportion as they can nullify the sense of I, can this, which we call God consciousness, take over and fulfill itself. In other words, you already see that in prayer that you cannot influence God, nor can you be so almighty smart as to tell God what things you have need of, or what date you would like them on, or what neighborhood. And so you have learned to refrain from the use of the word I in that direction already. To some extent, you see, you have eliminated the word I from your vocabulary, certainly insofar as it applies to prayer or treatment, because no longer would you go to God to tell God your needs or amounts or dates, nor would you ever use prayer as a means toward influencing God in any wise. Now just think how, to what extent you have already eliminated the word I from your vocabulary when you have eliminated it from all prayer and treatment. Do you see that? That is in itself one of the biggest steps you will ever be called upon to take. The moment that you can learn to go to God without one single desire, you have eliminated the word I, because it is only I who could have a wish or a desire or a will. Do you see that? Now, in going to God, you are helped in your dropping of the I by knowing this, that in going to God there isn't any use to have a material wish or desire or hope, since God doesn't deal in material thoughts or things. When we go to God, we are going for a spiritual blessing or benediction. But there certainly isn't anyone in this room who knows what a spiritual blessing or benediction consists of. No one in this room knows that. Not a soul has any way of knowing what things God has prepared for them who love God. No one has any way of knowing what the spiritual kingdom consists of and what its blessings consist of, and no one will ever know it until they are in the presence of God and feel a spiritual blessing or benediction or release. And then they will know that it is not in anything that's acquired, it is in a sense of release that God's blessing is felt. We are released from the things and thoughts of the world. Only in a sense of release is God's blessing made manifest. Never in a sense of adding anything to us, giving anything to us, never in any sense of receiving anything from God. The whole of God's blessing is made manifest in the word release. We are released through the blessing of God from the thoughts and the things of the world. We are not taken out of the world. We are left in the world but not of it. And we are freed. We are given release and freedom from the thoughts and things of the world, and we then begin to understand the meaning of terms like green pastures, still waters. Do you see that? Just think of the poetry of such terms. Green pastures, still waters.